Hello and welcome to Dragon Puppet. My name is Thomas and today we're going to embark on an exploration of one of the most intriguing races in Dungeons and Dragons, Tieflings. They are currently one of the most popular races in Dungeons and Dragons, but let's go back to the beginning to see where this race came from, how it's transformed over the various editions, and if it will stick around in the future. Before we begin our journey back through the editions, let's quickly just summarise what a Tiefling is. Tieflings are a unique half-race in Dungeons & Dragons, distantly descended from a union or pact between humans and fiends. Due to their heritage, they're often seen as outsiders in society, and their distinctive features often include horns, tails, and other demonic traits, making them kind of stand out even within the diverse tapestry of races and characters that inhabit the Forgotten Realms, and the wider D&D universe. Tieflings have been at the forefront of D&D marketing for some time, with their popularity being boosted from things like Critical Role and their prominence in video games such as the recent Baldur's Gate 3. They've gone from mere mentions in the Monster Manual to a fully playable race in the 5th edition Player's Handbook. So where did it all start? The origins of Tieflings can be traced back to the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. Tieflings were first introduced in the Planescape campaign setting from 1994, from the mind of renowned game designer Zeb Cook. With their origins tied to the lower planes, Tieflings gave players the chance to explore complex and interesting stories of heritage and identity. In the monstrous compendium Planescape Appendix, Tieflings are described as determined, stubborn, wily, and occasionally berserk warriors and talented mages, and are mentioned to have physical traits such as hooves, small horns, pointed ears, scales, and preferring dark attire. This was expanded upon in the Planewalker's Handbook, which was released in 1996, with a whole table of Tiefling abilities, appearance traits, and special side effects to roll for, which added a whole range of options and customization for players. And Tieflings weren't just limited to the tabletop version of Dungeons & Dragons either. Gamers would see the inclusion of Tieflings in Planescape Torment, as well as Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Am. Planescape Torment introduces us to Anna of the Shadows, whose most prominent trait is her rat-like tail. Interestingly enough, her skimpy outfit is canonically explained as her need to be cooler due to her hot-running fiendish bloodline. But it was also the 90s, so that may have had something to do with it. Over in Baldur's Gate 2, we meet Herr de Lys, who somewhat lacks the clear physical characteristics that we've become used to from a Tiefling in modern editions, including the absence of horns like Anna. The first book from the 3rd edition of Dungeons & Dragons that features Tieflings was the Monster Manual, released in 2000. And then Tieflings were firmly cemented in the Forgotten Realms setting with the release of Monsters of Faerun, where they appeared, and eventually as a player character race in the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, as well as in Races of Faerun. They appear alongside other plain touch races, such as the Aasimar and the Genasi. Races of Faerun in particular details in-depth lore such as history, Tiefling society, and relations to other races. Once again, the video games of this edition also featured Tieflings, this time in the expansion Neverwinter Nights Hordes of the Underdark, with Valen Shadowbreath. In contrast to Herr de Lys from 2nd edition, Valen showcases more obvious traits seen in later editions of D&D. Red hair, horns, a pale discoloured skin, and a devil-like tail. He is even referred to by another companion as Goatman. Version 3.5 of Dungeons & Dragons featured a few smaller rule changes but didn't justify enough to make a whole new edition. Once again, Tieflings were included in the Monster Manual, as well as a player character race in the Planar Handbook and in Races of Destiny. Neverwinter Nights 2 continued the video game representation of Tieflings, with not only another companion, but now including Tieflings as a core player race, continuing to solidify Tieflings' prominence by making them an option in D&D character creation. While this edition didn't do much to expand on Tieflings compared to the last edition, it did continue to showcase Tieflings in various books, and they remained a popular race within the game, leading to the next big milestone, Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. It's here that Tieflings really started to come into the spotlight. The first thing we notice is that they have a bit of a makeover for 4th edition. William O'Connor, the artist who designed Tieflings for 4th edition, noted the influence and integration of miniatures in Dungeons & Dragons, and wanted Tieflings to really stand out on the tabletop. To do this, O'Connor exaggerated the Tiefling silhouette, and really made the most of their physical traits, like the horns and the tail. O'Connor explained that he wanted to give Tieflings a sexy, dark, and gothic appeal. They were part of the 4th edition right from release, appearing as a playable race in the 4th edition Player's Handbook. Tieflings appeared in a whole bunch of 4th edition books, and also regularly featured on cover art. And most notably, it was during this time that Tieflings got their first dedicated book, Player's Handbook Races Tieflings, which is a treasure trove of extra options and ideas for Tiefling characters. As far as video games go, in this edition, Tieflings continued to be popular. They were a playable race in the Neverwinter MMORPG, and 2 variants were available to choose from in Dungeons & Dragons Online. The Tiefling hype didn't slow down as 5th edition came round. Tieflings appeared as a player character race in the 5th edition Player's Handbook in 2014, and variant options and bloodlines were offered in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, making the Tiefling race very multifaceted in this edition. We even got our first live-action Tiefling in the form of Doric, who has a leading role in the Dungeons & Dragons movie. And we can't forget our favourite Tieflings from Baldur's Gate 3. There is an abundance of lovable yet complex ones to choose from. Stats released by Larian Studios showed that Tieflings are the 5th most popular playable race in Baldur's Gate 3. So even though Tieflings weren't here right at the beginning of the game, they are certainly a huge core part of it now. The 2024 revision of Dungeons & Dragons, currently known as OneD&D, continues to improve and update Tieflings too, giving them 3 distinct sub-races known as lineages. Shared traits include the Dark Vision and Thaumaturgy cantrip, with additional resistances, spells and features added depending on your choice of lineage. So from an obscure race to one of D&D's most iconic, it seems like Tieflings are here to stay. They give players a range of tropes to explore within the role-playing aspect of the game, whether that's embracing their fiendish bloodline for an evil campaign or attempting to showcase the classic don't judge a book by its cover trope, while also presenting a lot of interesting options for customization, which some of the more vanilla races like humans and elves don't really offer. So there you have it, a brief history of one of the most visually and narratively interesting races available in D&D. We've got some really exciting stuff coming to this channel in the next few months, so thank you for watching and stick around, we'll see you soon.